He's not here.
I'll tell you, you need, Deputy Day is not here yet?
Yes.
All right, why don't we take our mid-morning break and then we'll work up to our noon time, and that will allow you to get on the telephone and yell at somebody. All right, we'll take our, we're going to take a mid-morning break, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to work right through our take our 15-minute break now.
Have you completed?
Yes, ma'am.
Just for clarity of the record, it is 16A, correct, not 6A?
Yes, I
just want the record to be clear on it. It's 16A as opposed to 6. Thank
All
you.
right, so after having read what's been marked and admitted as State's Exhibit 16A, what,
It hasn't been admitted yet.
It has not been admitted.
after you read what has been identified as State's Exhibit 16A, what did you do?
I continued with my investigation. Like I mentioned before, I felt the scene was safe. Now I was more concerned about the victim.
Objection to the victim.
Sergeant, would you use Ms. Soul as opposed to the victim?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Did you notice any injuries on Miss Soul?
I did.
Could you please tell us what you saw as you observed her?
She had a small laceration on her lip, and there was a small amount of blood on her chin.
And did you come to learn that Ms. Dobro took photographs of Ms. Soul while she was there?
I was not aware of Ms. Dombrow taking photographs.
Right. I'm going to show you what have been marked.
And admitted into evidence of States 4A, 4B. Look at those for me, please, Sergeant.
Yes, ma'am.
Are those photographs a fair and accurate reflection of the way Ms. Soul looked when you were at her home around about 5:30, 6 o'clock on the morning of January 12th, 2017?
They do, minus the amount of blood that I don't see that on these two pictures here.
Okay, so are you saying that the blood has been somehow wiped up or disappeared?
Yes, ma'am.
But other than that, do those photographs fairly and accurately reflect her appearance when you were at her home at 5:30 or 6 o'clock?
That's correct.
Thank you, sir. May I publish these? saw that trickle of blood? If you can remember.
I can. It would be towards her right side in that shadowed area.
I'm going to give you a to show us.
So, very thin line from the corner of her mouth down her chin.
Was that the nightgown that you described as having pulled up?
That is.
Now we can show you basically toward E. And once again, that's the state of Miss Soul when you saw her arrive at your house.
Yes, there's a oxygen tube that initially she had in her nose.
And when you saw her, was the oxygen tube still in her nose?
Yes.
And can you see the trickle of blood in this photograph?
No, ma'am.
When you left the scene, what was your take on what had occurred at 3296 Brockton Lane?
I felt it was a mental health issue
And why is that, Sergeant?
for a number of reasons. The first being that she said she was in a mental health facility for the past 14 days
Yes.
and that she was there not of her own free will, which at that time did not make sense to me.
Okay, I want you to speak up nice and loudly so the jury can hear you. So,
She said she had been in a mental health facility for 14 days against her will.
yes.
And at that time, that didn't make any sense to me.
So did that give you pause about her mental condition?
Correct.
All right. Was there anything else that made you believe that it was more of a mental issue?
Earlier in that day, we're there on the 12th at 5 in the morning, but on the 11th, sometime in the early afternoon, the sheriff's office was dispatched there to check on her welfare. And from what I was advised,
Okay, that's hearsay.
okay,
Okay. Was there anything else? For example, did the email that Marianne Dondro showed you,
It's sustained.
what effect did that email have on you?
that seemed to bring clarity to the situation to me a little bit.
In what way did it bring clarity to you?
Some of the aspects of the crime scene didn't quite add up, and I thought maybe the victim was trying to get Bybee in trouble. And it also spoke to some of her mental health status.
Okay. Did you take her physical appearance into account?
I did. I did.
Inquire.
Sergeant, correct?
Correct.
All right. Good afternoon, or good morning. In taking her physical appearance into consideration, you saw no evidence that she was choked, correct?
That is correct.
And the more you spoke to Miss Soul, the more her story changed. Is that fair?
I wouldn't say that's exactly fair. I would say the story was fairly consistent, but her attitude towards Frank changed tremendously.
You gave an interview in this case back on actually January 12, 2017, to Detective Gator
Mm-hmm.
and Sergeant Shirtliff, correct?
Correct.
Madam Mayor,
No.
I'll show you, and I don't know what evidence number we're at. I can't. Z. Show you what a mark for identification is defendants. Z, number Z, ask that you take a look at highlighted section.
Mm-hmm.
Read it to yourself.
Okay.
So I asked you the question. The more you talked to her, her story changed, correct?
Correct.
And in your interview with Detective Gaeta, Sergeant Shirtliff, back January 12th of that year, that's exactly what you told them, right? Right there in the paper.
Correct. That's what I said.
That's what you said.
Mhm.
All right. Now, you called rescue and asked them to come to the scene, correct?
That is correct.
EMTs, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Just give me a second. Don't read any further. And I'll refer to that in a second if we could. Did you actually see the EMTs rescue arrive?
Yes.
Did you see them go in and interact with Miss Soul?
I was outside of the condo,
Yes, sir.
and I watched them walk in, and I watched them come out.
How long, in your estimation, were they in there evaluating Miss Soul?
I would say less than 5 minutes.
You have no idea what was asked or what they did. Is that fair?
That is fair.
Okay. Now, just to be clear, you were one of how many sergeants that were on scene that way?
I was the only sergeant.
Okay. How about Sergeant Fields? Did you see him?
Did not see him.
How many other deputies were there?
Total of 3 deputies and myself.
3 deputies being who, if you recall?
I do. There's a Deputy Carson Blank, Deputy Russ Reynolds, and Deputy Chris Butler.
And then yourself, correct? But you did not see Sergeant Fields.
I left prior to his arrival, but he did show up.
All right. Who was the very first deputy on scene? Do you know? And if you don't, that's okay.
I honestly don't. Me and Carson Blank arrived simultaneously.
Do you recall that when you arrived, other deputies were already there?
There were no other deputies there.
All right, fair enough. Talking about injuries that you saw, if any, on Miss Soul, you mentioned that she had a very minor abrasion to her lip.
Correct.
You did not see bruising throughout her face, correct?
That is correct.
You did not see bruising on her neck, correct?
No, I did not.
You stated that you saw pills scattered, I think you say, underneath her chair.
Yes, sir.
Did anyone collect those pills?
No, sir.
Your impression, Sergeant, was that Miss Soul, at the time that you were there, at the time you interacted with her, appeared to you to be delusional, correct?
Some type of mental health event, correct.
And in fact, it was your impression, after talking to her, looking at the scene, was that it looked staged. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You were made aware by Miss Soul that, according to her, Mr. Bybee sat on her chest, but you didn't see any real indication of trauma, correct?
She mentioned specifically initially that he was sitting on her chest, but that his knees were more in her pelvic area, and I was not looking.
Let's be fair, you didn't check that area.
I didn't check that area.
Okay. So, if in fact there was trauma to that area, you didn't do anything to visually verify.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's correct.
It was your impression, Sergeant, that in speaking to Miss Soul, she gave indications that she both loved Mr. Bybee and hated him at the same time. Is that fair?
That is fair. That's where I think the story kind of changed.
And you said in viewing her nightgown, or whatever you may want to call it, there was, quote, a little bit of blood, correct?
Yes.
And you were concerned because the description that she gave you of a 2-hour physical battle between her and Mr. Bybee, what you were seeing of her physical presence didn't support that, correct?
That is correct.
And in fact, I think you described what you saw on her lip as just maybe chapped lips, correct?
I believe so.
When she was asked about whether she ingested any of the pills, you recall that she would say yes and then no, and then yes and then no.
That's another part of the story that vacillated and changed, yes.
Do you know whether she was transported to the hospital?
I know she was not.
Do you know why?
I do not.
We have a moment.
Come in. You gotta open the little door on the front.
Sergeant, I'm going to show you a photograph. Very good. You see this area here, bruising on the nose, bruising on potentially the throat area. You didn't see that when you were there, did you?
That is correct. Can I take a look at the actual hard copy of the picture?
I'll show you it's been admitted as State's Exhibit 5A, if I may.
Thank you,
It's
sir.
not the way she looked when you saw her, correct?
I still see the laceration on the lips and the blood on but the redness on her nose, I didn't see that morning.
All right. Let me show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 5B as a boy. Did you notice any injury to her chin, as is depicted in that photograph?
I did not.
submitted as State's Exhibit 5C as in cat. Did you notice the amount of blood that's shown in that picture on her gown when you saw her?
That looks pretty close. I don't remember seeing so much on the arm, but around the neck was about the same.
Okay. I'll show you what I've been admitted as State's Exhibit 5E as in echo. Did you see the blood on her eyebrows?
I did not.
Certainly, if you had seen the extent, or at least the injuries depicted in these photographs, you may have had a different opinion, correct?
That is correct.
Because what you were seeing certainly was not indicative, was not supportive of the story she had told you about this attack, correct?
That is correct.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Are you right?
Before you got to that crime scene, you met up with,
Deputy Carson Plank. Tell us where that took place.
We were at the Lamborghini dealership in the area of Proctor and 41.
and how far is that from Miss Soul's residence?
I'm guessing it's a fair distance. It seemed it was.
Okay, I don't want you to guess, I want you to tell me, rather than give me the mileage. How long did it take you to drive there?
Probably 6 to 7, 8 minutes.
All right. And did you have a discussion particularly about Miss Soul with Carson Plank before you and she left to arrive at the crime scene?
Yes.
Object, Judge. Hearsay.
He can answer the question depending on the content of the conversation.
Yes, sir.
No, we're not getting into the content of the conversation. So did you have a discussion with Carson Plank specifically about the victim, Marcia Soul, before you left with her to go to the crime scene?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled, you may answer that question.
She mentioned two things. One,
Objection.
Sergeant Allen, listen, we're not getting into the content. I want a simple yes or no answer.
yes,
Did you have, all right, okay. Did Carson Plank also pull up a screen in her car and show you information about Miss Soul?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled.
Answer the question, please.
I don't recall seeing a specific screen, just what she verbally told me.
She told you verbally, all right. And when you arrived at the crime scene with Carson Plank, did she continue to tell you?
Objection.
The nightgown that you described as having pulled up.
That is.
Now I'm going to show you Exhibit 4E. And once again, that's the state of Miss Soul when you saw her arrive at your house.
Yes, there's a oxygen tube that initially she had in her nose.
And when you saw her, was the oxygen tube still in her nose?
Yes.
And can you see the trickle of blood in this photograph?
No, ma'am.
When you left the scene, what was your take on what had occurred at 3296 Brockton Lane?
I felt it was a mental health issue
And why is that, Sergeant?
for a number of reasons. The first being that she said she was in a mental health facility for the past 14 days
Yes.
and that she was there not of her own free will, which at that time did not make sense to me.
Okay, I want you to speak up nice and loudly so the jury can hear you. So,
She said she had been in a mental health facility for 14 days against her will.
yes.
And at that time, that didn't make any sense to me.
So did that give you pause about her mental condition?
Correct.
All right. Was there anything else that made you believe that it was more of a mental issue?
Approximately from that computer screen.
All right, so let the record reflect that it looks like it's about 3 feet, two
It
and
was
a half
close.
to 3 feet. All right. And did you have an opportunity to observe Miss Soul's face and her clothing?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Can you tell the jury what you saw when you looked at her?
What I noticed and stood out to me was the bruising around her mouth as it appeared swollen and not of an inflicted type of bruise. I also saw the blood all over her nightgown.
Not as a what? Not as a what kind of bruise?
Or not as an accidental bruise, I'm sorry. It looked as a inflicted bruise because of the swelling.
Legal basis for the objection. Overruled.
Okay, so let's go back. What did you notice about her? And you can continue to talk about the swelling.
I noticed the bruising around her mouth, specifically the swelling, and that it had been bleeding. It wasn't bleeding at the time I saw her, and the blood on her nightgown.
And based upon your background and experience and the training that you've just described to the members of the jury, did these wounds appear to be fresh wounds?
Yes.
And why do you say, based on your background and experience, that they appear to be inflicted wounds as opposed to accidental wounds?
Say again?
Objection to the record.
Thank you, sir. Overruled.
You may answer, Ms. Stiles.
Due to the swelling, had she fallen and hit herself or something, the swelling that appeared to me that it was from a hand pressing down very hard, that swelling wouldn't be like that if it was not inflicted, in my opinion.
Can I see which photographs more than you can believe you are? I appreciate that.
I will bring them.
Certainly. Just bring them over.
Thank you.
Stiles, I'm showing you what have been admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 5B, 5B, and 5D. Please look at those photographs. Are these photographs a fair and accurate reflection of the way Ms. Soul looked around 8 o'clock in the morning of January 12th, 2017?
Yes. Yes.
Publish her on.
Okay. If it will assist her in giving her testimony.
These photographs assist you in describing what you saw in Ms. Soul's face back on the morning of January 12th. They assisted.
Yes.
Look first at State Exhibit 5E, there's a laser pointer for this file.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the bloody clothes, but this swelling right in my hand's shaking. I'm sorry. Right in there, that swelling, not the bruising so much as the swelling, is what caught my eye.
Let's look next. State Exhibit 5E, and if you can elaborate on your.
Again, it's this inflicted look of the swelling of the lip and the bruising up there and the bruising down here. That is what I specifically remember as being something not right with the fall. That would be as if she fell.
Finally, going to State Exhibit 5E. Again, I'm going to ask you to draw the jury's attention to the injuries that you saw in the soul.
Again, my focus that morning was of the bruising in here, the lip, and in this area. That type of bruising would not, in my opinion, be from a fall or self-inflicted. It would be very difficult to.
Objection.
Okay.
Stay.
Thank you. Based on your background and experience as a certified trauma specialist, did these appear to be the result of a fall?
No.
You may dear on cross-examination. Overruled.
Thank you.
Based on your background and experience as a certified trauma specialist, did these appear to be staged or self-inflicted wounds?
Sustained.
Good morning, Ms. Stiles. John Lake, nice to meet you. You were not retained by the state to be an expert witness in this case.
No, I was not.
Have you reviewed any records from Sarasota Memorial Hospital in this case?
No, I haven't.
Do you know a Dr. Lerner?
No, I don't.
Never met him? Never talked to him?
No.
You had an interview with Detective Gator after you saw Miss Soul that morning. Am I right?
Yes.
And during that interview, you didn't opine to Detective Gator that you knew the cause and origin of the injuries.
I believe I said in the interview that they did not appear as self-inflicted.
Okay. When is the last time you looked at that?
A few days.
When is that?
A few days.
You reviewed it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And are you, in that interview, Detective Gator was asking you about the circumstances about when you first saw her that morning. Am I right about that?
Yes.
Okay. And that time frame was roughly around 8:15 in the morning?
8 o'clock.
Okay. Did you see the police or any ambulance or anybody at the property at 5:30 in the morning?
Yes, I did.
Did you go out and see on the welfare and soul then?
No, I did not.
Did you tell Detective Gator that you were up and you saw the police and the ambulance there at 5:30 in the morning?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And that should have been memorialized from the interview, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so you have no idea what condition, if any, Miss Soul was in at 5:30 or 6 in the morning.
I did not see her.
And so There's no question in your mind that that time frame when you first saw the police was around roughly 5:30 to 6 a.m.?
Yes.
Heard the commotion.
Yes.
Now, let's be clear for the jury's edification that your place is next door. Can you describe what that means?
They are villas, and they are adjoining villas. We share a firewall.
Right? And so during that time frame, did you look out your window at 5:30 to 6? How did you know the police were there?
My husband was going out of town, and so he was up, and we opened the garage door and walked outside.
Which husband's name?
Carl Stiles.
Okay. And you told Detective Gator that?
Yes.
Okay. And then Detective Gator came right over to you, Carl, correct?
No, she did not.
I know. Oh, wait a minute. You're telling this jury that Detective Gator spoke to your husband while that happened?
I'm not my husband.
I'm asking you.
Not that I'm aware of.
So as we sit in this trial today, you have no independent knowledge that the police have ever interviewed Carl, your husband?
No, I don't.
What was Carl doing at 5:30, 6 in the morning?
Getting ready to leave.
Where was he going?
He was going to his job.
Okay. Can you describe to the jury how the vehicles would park at that location?
There were a couple deputy cars, one in her driveway, I believe, one ambulance, a fire truck, and then as Carl was getting ready to leave, another fire truck or ambulance, I don't know which, pulled up, and we were concerned that he would be able to get out of the driveway because of all of the emergency vehicles.
So he was concerned that he couldn't get out because the police and emergency vehicles were in the area.
Yeah, we wondered
Right.
as he was walking to his vehicle to leave.
Okay. And you learned about that because at some point you talked to Carl around 8 in the morning.
Yes, he called me.
So he called you. Why are you seeing this soul outside?
Yes.
And he told you that the police...
Objection, hearsay.
We had a discussion with him and you learned information.
Objection.
Overruled at this point.
That's a yes.
I spoke to my husband. Yes, I did speak to my husband.
And that was before you saw Miss Soul.
Yes.
Okay. And he told you this.
Objection.
I understand.
Sustained. Mr. Lakey?
Yes.
There's a podium there for a reason. Let's
understand.
stick close to it, all right?
Before I ask you about the circumstances of meeting that morning, how would you describe Marcia Soul as a neighbor?
She was a fine neighbor.
You got along with her?
Yes.
You didn't fight with her?
No, I have not.
You wouldn't describe her as being agitated type of woman?
She was someone I met in the driveway, taking out the trash, or coming and going, wave, say hi. I do not have a relationship with her.
Okay, have you been in her place?
Yes, I have.
Okay, on how many occasions?
I don't know.
Okay.
2, 3. Since January 12th.
Okay.
After that, before.
Okay. So prior to the 12th, you did not socialize with her?
I've never socialized with her.
Okay. You did not go to her place prior to the 12th?
I will define socializing. No, I've never been to her place before January 12th.
Okay. After you saw her in this on 8/15 or so, when you described to the state prosecutor what the condition was, did you go in and call 911?
No, I did not.
Okay. And did you make any recommendations to her what to do?
I asked her if help was coming.
Objection, hearsay.
What she said.
All right. You want to thank Coach?
I guess so.
Thank you. Let me ask you, we went out at 8:15 in the morning or so. Did you smell any fumes of carbon monoxide or anything like that?
I saw her at 8 o'clock in the morning, and no, I did not smell anything.
Did you hear a car running at all between 6 a.m. to 8 a.m.?
I heard fire trucks. I heard.
Let me just say, you in fairness to you, can you tell us, tell the jury, what the dynamics are of the garages? Do they piggyback? How far is her garage to your place?
They're beside each other, and that's where the firewall is,
Okay.
I believe.
My question to you, in the early morning hours, January 12th, did you hear any vehicle running before the police arrived at all, at any time?
No, we sleep with the sound machine on.
What time did you wake up?
Probably around 5.
5 a.m.?
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, you didn't hear any car running or anything like that?
Honestly, I can't remember if the fire truck looked out. Fire trucks on our street is not an uncommon incident.
Thanks. Well, there you go.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Everybody else.
Any redirect? Subject to recall, ladies and gentlemen?
No, I stated.
Stiles, you're subject to recall. Don't discuss your testimony with any other potential witnesses in this case until the case has been resolved.
Okay.
Thank you. You are discharged.
Here we approach.
Approach.
Yeah, please.
All right, State, call your next witness.
State call Michael Bay.
Okay.
Yes.
Inquire, Mr. Frederick.
Good morning, Deputy Day. Will you please tell us your full name and spell your last name?
Day, D-A-Y.
And what do you do for a living, Deputy Day?
I work for the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office. I'm a patrol deputy.
How long have you done so?
Approximately 24 years.
Can you tell us your duties today?
Patrol deputy.
Okay. And what about back in January or December, late December, early January of 2017?
I was working as a patrol deputy on that day.
Okay. Did there come a time when you were sent to 3296 Brockton Lane on December 29th of 2016?
Yes.
And what was the purpose of that dispatch to Brockton Lane?
To evaluate a subject to reference a possible Baker Act.
All right. Were you alone or were you accompanied with by a fellow deputy?
Originally I was alone, but he arrived shortly after I did. So I had a partner there.
Okay. When your partner arrived, did you speak to Miss Soul?
I did.
Okay. Did she ever tell you that she sent an email to her doctor threatening to commit suicide?
Overruled.
Would you repeat the question, please?
When you got there, did she tell you that she had sent an email to her doctor threatening to commit suicide?
She admitted to sending one, and then at one point she denied sending one.
At one point?
Yes, we went back and forth for several minutes while I was trying to evaluate her.
Deputy Day, were you interviewed by Detective Gata?
I was.
Okay, and do you have that interview with you here today?
I do.
Okay. And do you remember being interviewed by Detective Gata on January 17th of 2017?
I do.
And did you not repeatedly, at least 4, 5, or 6 times, tell Detective Gata that Miss Soul continued to deny that she sent that email to her doctor?
She did.
Sidebar.
Were you aware of a prior Baker Act of Ms. Soul in which she sent an email to her doctor?
Not when I respond to that day. I was only aware that one had supposedly been sent to the doctor that day. That's what I was working off of.
All right, and where did you get that information?
From the dispatch screen.
Did Ms. Soul ever tell you that she sent an email to her doctor that day threatening to commit suicide?
I believe she denied the one from that day.
And how many times did she deny that one?
Several times.
How many times?
I can't answer.
More than once?
More than once, yes.
More than twice?
Yes.
More than 3 times?
Approximately 3 times.
Okay. Your Honor, may I confer with co-counsel?
You may. Thank you. Cross-examination.
Good morning, Deputy.
Morning.
When you go out to evaluate someone for a Baker Act, that's a decision you would make after you interview someone and make that on your own volition, so to speak?
That's correct.
Okay, regardless of emails, regardless of anything else, you would have an independent authority as a deputy to evaluate someone and make a decision whether you think they meet the criteria of a Baker Act.
Yes.
Okay. In this case, you did that.
Yes.
And you decided that she needed to be Baker Act.
Yes.
And that was based on your observations when you were there that day.
Yes.
Okay. No matter what else happened, you made that determination.
Yes.
Okay. And you could have said no. You could have left the property.
Yes.
You didn't do that.
No.
Okay. Just for the jury's sake, there's a protocol on how that works. You would call an ambulance or something. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. And then thereafter, you have paperwork and you take it to the facility.
Correct.
Something you've done many times in your career.
Yes.
Okay. So there's no question in your mind when you were there that day and you spoke with her, you evaluated her, that she needed to be Baker Act.
Yes.
Okay. Would you describe her behavior as delusional or paranoid?
Objection.
Legal basis.
Competence.
Experienced police officer, 20 plus years.
I've heard that he was a law enforcement officer for 24 years. I have no knowledge of his background or training during that 24-year period.
Let me ask you.
To identify mental health issues.
I'll ask him.
Sustained.
Thank you. You've testified in a police officer how many years?
Approximately 24 years.
Okay. And you've gone for training after you left the police academy?
I have.
And how often do you do that?
Twice a year.
Okay. And then over those 20 plus years, have you had training on how to deal with people with mental health?
I have.
Okay. And you would go to calls involving Baker Act during those 20 years?
Pardon me?
You would have calls involving people that were potentially being Baker Acted during all those years you've been in law enforcement?
Yes.
Okay. And that based on that training, you would have to evaluate someone when you went to the location to determine whether they need to be Baker Acted.
Yes.
And how many times do you think in your career you've done that?
Hundreds.
How many?
Hundreds of times.
Hundreds of them. Okay. And so you believe that you're in a position when you go to see someone, interview them, evaluate them, that you can make that decision?
If I have a good faith belief that that person is immediate need of health, yes,
And that's the decision you made that morning or that day?
it is.
Okay. And you stand by that?
I do.
Now, you were asked the question about whether she first, Ms. Soul, had admitted sending the email. What is your response to that? Has she done it? Had she said that to you?
At one point, she did admit to sending an email.
Okay. No question about that. She said that to you.
Yes. But then she said it was sent in the past.
And then she changed her mind and said something different.
She kept saying different things, yes.
Okay. And that happened often when you were there that day.
It did.
And who was the other deputy that was with you that morning or that day?
I believe it was Deputy Collison.
Okay. And you and that deputy were in agreement that she needed to be Baker Act.
Yes.
Okay. There was no disagreement on that.
No.
And when you were there, she actually threatened to file a complaint against you.
Yes.
Okay. And what happened there? Why was she doing that? Why did she say that?
Because I was evaluating her for the Baker Act.
Okay. And she told you that she wanted to see the guys in the suits. Is that
Yeah,
right?
she mentioned guys in suits.
And you knew nothing about that.
No.
Okay. And she was a little bit combative with you.
She was angry. She used vulgarity.
But wait, she used vulgarity? What words did she say?
Well, she was angry at me and she was angry yelling at the doctor.
What did she say for vulgarity?
I don't recall the exact words she used.
She used
was
cussing
angry.
words.
She was angry, yes.
And she said those cussings were to you.
She was angry, yes. I can't tell you exactly what she said.
But there's no question about that language.
Yes.
And she was screaming at times.
She was.
Okay. And she was screaming something about the doctor's wife. All right.
Yes.
And she was screaming and cussing on the phone. Am I right?
When she was talking to the doctor. Yes.
Right. And you that seemed to you to be very strange behavior.
It wasn't normal.
And she was, in some sense, throwing a tantrum.
To some degree, yes.
Okay. And the circumstances in which she had previously represented that she'd sent an email to her doctor indicated she wanted to commit suicide. Am I right about that?
Objection?
If you know.
Legal basis.
No basis for knowledge.
Sustained.
Do you have any knowledge of her sending an email before?
No.
You know the circumstances of it.
Pardon me?
You don't have any information about that.
No.
Okay. And that was the first time you ever met Marsha Soul.
It was.
You had no prior interaction with her.
I did not.
And you know nothing at all about any relationship she would have had with Frank Bybee.
I know nothing.
1 minute. You would bring her out at some point to be Baker Act, am I right? She had to leave her home to be Baker acted, correct?
She did.
Okay, and she didn't like that. Let's be clear about that.
Correct.
And she also threatened to kill herself when you took her to Bayside. She said that
I believe she said that, yes.
in your presence.
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing else.
Redirect?
No, we have to approach first room.
That'll be the easiest way to do this. Folks, I'm just going to ask you to step out for 2 minutes while I reconfirm something with the court reporter. So stretch your legs, but you're not going to be out very long.
We're leaving, all rise.
Question, and you know nothing at all about any relationship you would have had with Frankie Bybee. Answer, I know nothing.
Need one more read back at all?
No, thank you, sir.
All right. Bring the jury back in. Richard, as long as you're here and the jury's not, the court has reviewed Florida statute 972.09 regarding hostile witnesses in criminal cases based on the representation of the state, and the wording of the prior statement was given by this witness to an investigating detective and his testimony here, the court finds the inconsistency is sufficient to declare this witness as a hostile witness. At this point, he may be examined by the state, and you may impeach the witness by evidence of such prior contradictory statement. For the record.
Judge, just for my application to clear, I'm not sure what things from the witness I prefer to the sideline, just so I'm very clear about this position.
I don't understand what's unclear, Mr. Lake. I'll lay it out one more time. I have read a prior statement that was made by this witness. I find it inconsistent with his trial testimony. That is the second time this issue has been brought to my attention, and therefore, pursuant to Florida Statute 972.09, I am declaring him a hostile witness, and I'm allowing cross-examination for the purpose of this witness.
All rise, your examination.
Thank you, folks. Please be seated and state.
Deputy Dade, during defense questioning, you were asked, and you know nothing at all about any relationship she, meaning Miss Soul, would have with Deputy Bybee, and you responded, nothing at all. Isn't it true that you gave a statement to Detective Gaeta on January 17th of 2017, and she asked you in that statement, which was video recorded and audio recorded, since that point, you've had no conversations about that call with anyone, and you said, I told Frankie Bybee that I went there, and that the lady was nuts, and that she was going on about him. And he said something to the effect of, yeah, I'm dealing with her. And that was about the end of it. Do you remember telling Detective Gaeta that during your interview with her?
Yes, I did.
And today, your answer to the question was you knew nothing at all about any relationship she would have with Deputy Bybee.
I meant prior to going to that residence. I had no prior knowledge of this.
Why did you feel compelled after you saw Miss Soul at her house and you Baker acted her to call Deputy Bybee and relate to him this incident about Miss Soul?
Because she mentioned his name several times.
And you knew at that time that he was under internal affairs investigation specifically because of his interaction with this woman, Miss Soul. Did you not?
No, I did not.
Well, then why did you feel compelled to call Deputy Bybee and report to him about someone that you didn't think he knew? Why would you do that?
Objection, argument, that's
Overruled.
Why did you feel compelled to call Deputy Bybee and tell him about a call that you made when you didn't think that you knew about it or he knew about it? What did you have to gain from that, sir?
I was informing him that she was mentioning his name.
And what did he say to you?
He'll deal with it. I spoke to
No,
him
he didn't
briefly.
say he'll deal with it. What did he say?
I don't recall.
If you don't recall, would you like to refresh your
Objection.
recollection?
Yes.
Yes,
One,
ma'am.
she's not allowing the witness to answer the question. She's badgering the witness. She's argumentative.
I'll agree with both points. If there is something you'd like to show him to help refresh his memory, you may do so.
Can you direct me to a page?
Yes, please turn to page 8, Deputy Day. Round about the next page. Statement that you made, where you talked about, I told Frank Bybee. Could you read that entire statement by yourself, please?
Just a moment, my pages are not marked.
The mark is long, sir. Page 8, please.
The next to the last page.
I'm trying to think. I told somebody.
No, read it to yourself, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Right, and when you told Mr. Bybee that you went to the house and she was nuts and she was going on about him, what did he say to you?
I'm dealing with her.
Would you please read the entire statement? Yeah, I'm dealing with her.
And that was about the end of it.
Okay, so that was in the present tense, wasn't it? Yeah, I'm dealing with her.
I assume so, yes.
Yes, and that was the very day
No, I
that
did.
she was Baker Act, correct?
No, it was not.
When did you call him?
I called him on the day that she was Baker Act and he didn't answer the phone.
When did you call him again?
I didn't. He called me back several days later.
When was that, sir?
I don't recall the exact day.
How many days later?
I don't know. I don't.
Was it more than 1 day?
Yes.
Was it more than 2 days?
I believe so, yes.
Was it more than 3 days?
Yeah, she's trying to narrow it down, so I'll allow her to do that.
Was it more than 3 days?
I believe it was, yes.
So, would that have been already in 2017, in January of 2017?
I do not remember the exact date.
All right, but 3 days from December 29th would be in January, would it not?
Yes, it would.
All right. And are you telling this jury that at that time you did not know that Bybee was under an internal investigation?
No.
Nothing further.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. You may step down. Any right to recall?
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you for calling me back.
Thank you. Sir, you are subject to recall, so there is a possibility you may have to take the witness stand again. Therefore, I'd appreciate if you would not discuss your testimony with any other witnesses or potential witnesses in this case.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've got 5 minutes of 12. This looks like a perfect opportunity for us to take our lunch break. Why don't we plan on reconvening at 1:15, and we'll see you then.
All right,
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take our lunch break as well, and we will plan on reconvening a little bit before that. All right, thank you.
I'm there.
You just stand right here for me. Right here. You inquired.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Will you please tell us your full name and spell your last name?
Teresa Slovacek, Slovacek.
Ms. Slovacek, what do you do for a living?
I am employed with the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office in the crime scene unit as a crime scene analyst.
And how long have you worked for the Sheriff's Office as a crime scene analyst?
Approximately 1.5 years.
Do you have prior experience as a crime scene analyst?
I have a 3-week, 120-hour internship with Charlotte County Sheriff's Office back in 2009.
And tell us a little bit about your educational background, please.
I have a bachelor's in forensic science, associates in criminal justice, and a minor in chemistry through Trine University of Angola, Indiana.
All right. Now, I want to ask you, what are your responsibilities as a crime scene analyst with the Sheriff's Office?
I respond to several field cases such as burglaries, homicides, suicides, death investigations, sexual batteries.
And once you respond, what are some of the duties that you pursue while you're on the crime scenes?
Every crime scene that I respond to, typically photograph first, and then I process the scene for prints and/or DNA.
All right. How did you first become involved in this case?
I was first involved in this case on January 10th, 2017. I received a processing request that was assigned to me from my supervisor, reference the processing of checks.
And did you have an opportunity to receive those checks and process them?
Yes, I did.
Where did that take place?
That took place at our crime scene lab.
And tell us where your crime scene lab is.
It's on Bell Road.
All right. Now, describe those facilities a little bit with reference to the capabilities that you have for processing such things as latent prints.
We have several different types of chemicals that we use on items that are porous or non-porous items. Plus, we have cameras that we can photograph the prints with. We also have a lot of different types of powders that we can process with prints as well.
Slavicek, I'm showing you what have been admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 9. It's a composite exhibit, and you can take those items out of the envelopes.
May I have a pair of gloves?
Yes. These are too large.
Thank you. Yes, they work. Yes, I do.
Are they the checks that you processed back on January 10th, 2017?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Would you please tell the jury members how you went about processing these checks? And let's start with step one. The very first thing you did.
The very first thing I did with each check is I did a visual examination to see if I could see any type of rich detail on the checks. I also used an alternate light source to examine the checks prior to processing.
All right. And after that first step, when you looked at them with your naked eye and then used a, what was that, a light?
Alternate light source.
Alternate light source. Were you able to see anything on the checks that indicated a latent print or prints?
I did not.
Okay. What steps did you take further?
The next step that I took, I processed it with indane, which is a chemical reagent that reacts with the amino acids in the oils in your fingerprints.
And were there any results in that second step?
I had to view them with an alternate light source again, and then I did see ridge detail on all of the checks.
Okay. And what was the third step after you detected some ridge detail on all of the checks?
I photographed the ridge detail of each check using a digital camera and a memory card.
And once you did that, what did you do with the checks?
I put the checks back in their packaging.
Okay. And then what?
I sent my camera memory cards to our photo lab for them to be put on our server and for a disk to be generated for our APHIS unit.
Okay. So once you have that disc prepared with the results of your initial processing, they were sent to what you call the APHIS unit. Was that part of the Sarasota Sheriff's Office?
As soon as the disc was generated, I took it down to property. It was entered into property as evidence, and then it was given to the APHIS unit. And yes, they are a part of the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. Will you please tell the jury what APHIS stands for and what it means?
It's the automated fingerprint identification system, and it houses fingerprints that are stored.
Did you have anything further to do with the checks that you just examined?
I did not.
Thank you. Did you have further investigation in this case in any other regard?
Yes, I did.
Would you please tell the members of the jury what that was, Ms. Slovacek?
May I refer to my notes?
Yes, please. It would help to refresh your recollection.
On January 12th, I responded to 3296 Brockton Lane to assist with the investigation, but as soon as I was briefed, I was let go due to other court obligations, so I did not step foot into the residence. On January 14th, I responded to 5748 43rd Court East to assist with the execution of a search warrant. I assisted. Yes, I'm sorry. It's in Bradenton, Florida. I assisted with searching the residence and marking evidence with photo markers.
Can you tell, based on refreshing the recollection, who that residence belonged?
Yes, Frankie E. Bybee.
Did you have any further work in this case?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell members of the jury that?
On Tuesday, January 17th, I responded to the Bayside Center for Behavioral Health at 1625 South Osprey Avenue in Sarasota to photograph injuries on the victim.
Objection.
Her name is Ms. Soul.
Is that correct, your objection?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Did you go alone or were you accompanied by other forensic team members?
I went by myself. I was the only crime scene analyst present.
And when you went to that, what's it called, Bayside?
Bayside Center for Behavioral Health.
And did you see Soul there?
Yes, I did.
I'm showing you a marker identification as State Exhibit 10A, 10B, 10C, 10D, 10E, and 10F. Can you please look at those? Do you recognize them?
Yes, I do.
Are these an accurate reflection of Marcia Soul on January 17th of 2017?
Yes.
When you met with her at Bayside?
Yes, it is.
Turn around and evidence State Exhibits 10A through 10F.
No objection.
No objection having been heard. 10A through F are admitted and may be published at your discretion.
Okay. Thank you.
to State Exhibit 10. Can you tell me, is that how you first encountered Soul on January 17th?
This was after we were briefed, yes, in the shower room.
When you say you were briefed, by whom were you?
I was briefed by Sergeant Shirtliff and Detective Gata.
Were they also there at the scene?
Yes, they were.
Now we're turning to State Exhibit 10B, and I'd like you to point out and explain to the jury the purpose for taking this particular photograph.
I was told that she had
Objection. Hearsay.
You can tell, without telling us what's on it, I told you, I'd like you to tell us your purpose for taking this.
because there's an injury there, an apparent injury.
Next, that's Exhibit 10C. And what's the purpose for taking this photograph?
Another apparent injury.
Is that a true and accurate reflection of the way her chin and her upper lip above her lip between her lip and her nose were braided?
Yes.
Let's turn next to State Exhibit 10D. What are we looking at?
This is another apparent injury on her pelvic area.
Okay, and so for the purposes of the record, I'd like you to describe where this area is.
It's on the left side beneath the underwear line.
Okay. State Exhibit 10E. This is another depiction of that same black mark in the pubic area.
Yes, it is.
Pelvic area. And this will probably be State Exhibit 10F. The person that's depicted in that photograph holding her hands near her pelvic region. Is that Marcia Soul?
Yes, it is.
May I conclude for counsel?
You may, ma'am.
You have no further questions for this witness?
No questions? No questions? Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Subject to recall?
No.
All right, you may be released, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. State your next witness.
State of Linda? Yeah.
Thank you. What's your last name? Thank you.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Ms. Vienna.
Good afternoon.
Will you please tell us your full name and spell your last?
My name is Brenda Vienna, V as in Victor, I-A-N-A.
And what is your profession, Ms. Vienna?
I'm the supervisor of the fingerprint unit for the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been employed by the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office?
In February will be 28 years.
Would you please tell the jury your duties at the Sheriff's Office?
As the unit supervisor, I have 3 primary duties. My first duty is to obviously to mentor and evaluate the performance of the other members of the unit. I'm also the assistant administrator for our biometric information system. And since it is a small unit, I'm also a working supervisor and I conduct latent analysis.
Can you tell us what a biometric information system is?
It's just a fancy name for a computerized fingerprint database.
Was that a name, were you formerly called APHIS? Or is that?
Yes.
So this is a substitute for the APHIS name?
Yes, because when it was originally named APHIS, it was just fingerprints, and now there's more biometric information collected in these, and so they renamed them.
Thank you. Do you have previous experience in criminal forensics?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Prior to my appointment with the Sheriff's Office, I worked for the Sarasota Police Department for almost 11 years, and the last 4 years that I worked there, I was assigned to the criminalistics unit, where my duties were to respond to crime scenes and process them, and also conduct latent analysis.
Can you tell us about your specialized training, if any, in latent print analysis?
Sure. Over the course of my career, I've taken hundreds of hours of training. Most of my training has been conducted by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and Ron Smith and Associates, which they're the leading training company for all of the forensics disciplines.
Have you had continuing training at conferences, seminars, etc.?
Yes, I have.
And do you belong to any professional organizations?
I belong to the International Association for Identification and the Florida Division of the International Association for Identification.
How many fingerprint examinations have you conducted throughout the course of your career?
I would estimate it at several 100,000.
Tell the members of the jury, what is a latent fingerprint?
A latent fingerprint is a chance impression that will be left by the oils on your friction ridge, on your hands or your feet when it comes into contact with a surface.
And what is a known print?
A known print is when your fingerprints are taken in an environment, controlled environment, and your identity is known, and all 10 of your fingerprints are recorded, as well as your palm prints and both of your palm prints.
Are fingerprints unique to an individual?
Yes, absolutely.
And are even identical twins, do they have a difference in their fingerprints?
They would. Identical twins would have the same DNA, but they would have unique fingerprints, and that would not be the same.
Now, I'd like you to tell the members of the jury how the print comparison process works.
It's really not changed over the years. I would take the latent, which would be the unknown fingerprint that had been developed on some type of surface, and I would take the known fingerprint standard, and I would put them side by side and then use magnifying glass to conduct the analysis.
Can you touch something and not leave a latent fingerprint behind?
Yes.
All right. For example, if I've been touching this all day long, have I necessarily left fingerprints behind?
No.
And why is that?
It could be that surface is textured, rough, and just not conducive to leaving a fingerprint on it.
Okay. Are there factors that work against leaving latent prints behind?
Yes.
Can you tell us some of those factors, those variable factors?
It could be the surface that's being touched. It could be how much oil would be on the fingers, whether someone had just washed their hands whether there are elements, maybe exposure to the outdoors or wet, dirty, those type of surfaces.
Okay. And what kinds of surfaces are conducive to creating good prints that are suitable for comparison?
Shiny, smooth surfaces like glass and metal are good surfaces. Paper could be and is a good surface because it's porous and would absorb the oils.
How did you first become involved in this case, Ms. Viana?
Initially, I had another supervisor come to me and advise me that they...
Objection.
If you,
I'm going to sustain the objection, ma'am. Just
Okay.
don't tell us what somebody else told you. That's all.
As the supervisor, I have the discretion to assign a case, and in this particular case, I assigned it to myself. And then I received an envelope 2 DVDs from crime scene analyst Teresa Slovacek, and I reviewed the images that were on those 2 DVDs.
all right. If you would describe for us the items of evidence that you received from Ms. Slovacek.
They were 2 DVDs containing photographic representations of some paper items that have been processed for latent prints.
As part of the work that you did in this case, did you receive the known standards for Frank Bybee, the defendant?
Yes,
Where did you obtain those?
they were on file for because they're typically taken as part of the pre-employment process.
Okay. Did you, after you received that evidence from Ms. Slovacek, what steps did you take?
Photographic copies of the latent evidence was printed out so that we could do comparison analysis and attempt to identify the latents that were on the evidence.
Yeah, I'm now showing you would have been marked for identification. States Exhibit 10A, sorry, 17A and 17B. Can you look at those, ma'am?
Okay.
Do you recognize them?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you recognize them?
I recognize this as being the original card that was on file for these fingerprint standards. And in this particular photographic representation of the latent, my initials and my ID number are on this written note.
All right, and are those the 2 pieces of, are those the 2 items that you worked with when you received this information from Ms. Slovacek at Forensics?
Yes.
Right now, I'm now offering it to evidence 17A and 17B.
No objection.
Objection haven't been heard. 17A and 17B are admitted and may be published at your discretion.
You're gonna have to give me remedial training here.
This red button? First, we're going to look at State Exhibit 17A. What is this?
This is the latent print that was developed on the back of check number 831. And the documentation after we identified it as the right index finger of Mr. Bybee. You have my initials and my ID number on there, which is BB and the 695 here. Here. The date that we performed the analysis is here, and this is the initials and the ID number for Michelle Waldron, who peer-reviewed my analysis.
Let's look next at State Exhibit 17B. What do we see here, Tiana?
This is the known fingerprints card standard that was on file for Mr. Bybee. You can see his name is up here. This is his Sarasota Sheriff's Office PIN number, the date that he was fingerprinted, and the reason that he was fingerprinted. He was an applicant.
Now, specifically related to for us about how you identify.
Ma'am, was there any other prints found on those checks?
No,
So you didn't analyze anyone else's print but Mr. Bybee's, correct?
I did not identify any other than Mr. Bybee.
So when you announced to this jury that Miss Soul was excluded, you didn't even do an analysis because you didn't have her print to compare on the check, right?
No, I do have the prints to compare.
On the check?
Having her prints to compare would be that I have...
On the check, is her prints on the check?
No,
So you didn't do any comparison of any other print, and I know you want to look at this frivolly, but is there any other print on the check that you analyzed?
no.
Let me ask you this question. When was the print that you analyzed on the check placed on the check?
I have no knowledge of that.
Well, as a matter of fact, your expertise, so to speak, of fingerprint analysis can never say when a print is put on an item, correct?
That's correct.
You have no ability to date a print, correct?
Correct.
And when you look at these prints with your little dots, you're looking at, correct me if I'm wrong, hoops and swirls and those type of things? Or do you not do that anymore?
I think I testified that it's friction ridges, which is its ridge endings, bifurcations. That's what I categorized what I was looking at.
You familiar with the phrases hoops and swirls?
Not in fingerprint terminology, no.
Never heard of that in the X number of years you've been doing fingerprints?
I've heard of loops and whirls,
Yes, ma'am.
but not hoops and
Did you ever
swirls.
use those?
Ever use what?
What you just said, hoops and swirls.
Have I ever used that? No,
Why not?
because it's not appropriate terminology in fingerprint analysis.
Okay. You used what? Ridge analysis?
I used friction ridge detail such as ridge endings and ridge bifurcations.
Ridge endings and ridge what?
Bifurcations,
What are those?
that's how two ridges will come together, and we refer to that as a bifurcating ridges.
The reality is fingerprint analysis is very subjective, right?
I don't think it's objective, no.
I know you don't. It's not necessarily
I will sustain the objection for
Yes.
argumentative. Thank you.
It's not necessarily a perfect science, is it?
It is dependent on the qualification and the training and the experience of the examiner, yes.
So it's subjective, not perfect, subjective by an opinion given by somebody who does the analysis, right?
An opinion by someone who is qualified to make that opinion, yes.
Right. And you found a right index finger of Mr. Bybee, right?
On check number 831, yes.
No other fingerprints, correct?
Right, correct.
And you have no idea when that was placed there.
I have no idea, no.
Thank you, ma'am.
Redirect.
Were there any other latent prints on check 831?
No.
And was Mr. Bybee's latent print on the back side of check 831?
Objective, asked and answered.
Sustained.
And when you looked at that latent print that you received from the slope check, it belonged to Frank Bybee and not Marcia Soul, is that right?
That's correct.
Thank you, nothing further.
Thank you. You may step down, ma'am.
Thank you.
Subject to recall? State? Subject to recall?
No.
Thank you, ma'am. You are discharged.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May we approach?
May. I do. You may inquire, ma'am.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Will you please tell us your full name and spell your last name?
My full name is Richard Riley, R-E-I-L-L-Y.
And how long are you a detective at the Sarasota Sheriff's Office?
I'm currently assigned as a sergeant in the Internal Affairs Unit.
Okay, and how long have you been in the Internal Affairs Unit?
11 years.
Prior to that, were you a detective at the Sarasota Sheriff's Office?
I was.
How long was that, Detective Sergeant Riley?
Combined approximately 10 years.
I wanted to ask you how you became involved in this case against Frank Bybee.
I became involved when an allegation of misconduct was originally received from Marcia Soul. It was determined that I would be the investigator to follow up on those allegations.
And what date was that allegation received?
Her original complaint came in through our communications, so I don't know if that was the 20th. I believe I was made aware of it on the 21st of December, 2016.
Did there come a time when you personally spoke to Miss Soul?
I did. I went along with Sergeant Borntrager, and we spoke to her on December 27th, 2016.
Okay. At the time that you spoke to her on December 27th of 2016, did she tell you that Frank Bybee stole money from her?
No, she did not.
Did she ever accuse him of stealing $65,000 from her back on... May we approach?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did she tell you?
Objection, here's him.
Overruled.
What she told me was that the defendant had responded to a call for service. I believe it was back October of 2016. Transported her to a facility, a hospital facility, at which time, she found him to be very, caring and endearing. They exchanged numbers, so they basically formed a relationship of sorts, and that she had given him $1,000 to take care of her dog, which she felt she could no longer take care of, and also $1,000 for some household things, painting as such. And her complaint that day was basically that he had just now become too controlling, and involved in her everyday life, and she was uncomfortable with it and wanted it to stop.
Was there any discussion whatsoever between you and Miss Soul about him stealing money from her?
No, I asked her, aside from the 2,000 that she voluntarily said she gave him, if anything else was missing or she noticed, and she had told me that she did not notice anything at that time.
Thank you. Based on your conversation with Miss Soul on December 27th of 2016, did you take any steps?
We initiated an internal affairs investigation based upon the fact that we had an agency member who did receive some monies from somebody who he responded to a call, and it was just basically a potential conduct issue at that point.
All right, a conduct issue because she was Baker acted by Deputy Bybee, and then he took money from her? Why was it an internal affairs investigation?
Well, anytime you have this allegation that comes in that she feels she's being harassed, and then she also says that she had voluntarily given him some money to do some things after he responded to a call for service, it's a little bit alarming that we would have an agency member taking money from somebody that, you know, they'd taken to a treatment facility. So we needed to look into it to see if there was any policy violations.
Were there further developments with regard to Mr. Bybee as this case unfolded?
After I spoke to Marsh on the 27th, I was unable to speak to her again. She had gone to another facility. So in the interim of waiting for her to get back, so I could try to get some more information from her, I was made aware that an envelope arrived from her addressed to the defendant at the agency.
And were you able to see with your own eyes where that envelope was?
I was. It was in his mailbox.
All right. At that point, on January 5th, had Bybee been ordered to have no further contact with Miss Soul?
His sergeant sent an email stating that he had made
Just answer.
the defendant aware.
No,
that,
don't just answer. The objection is
Hearsay.
stand.
And if I may, Judge, just for the record, we had pretrial issues on this topic. I just wanted to preserve, so we were renewing that.
Understood. And it's preserved for the record.
Thank you.
Based on the interview with Miss Soul, what did you do with regard to that envelope?
Based on that interview, potential allegations of misconduct, and the fact that it had now arrived after he had been told not to have any further contact with her, we secured the envelope in my office, awaiting the advice of whether we were going to open it or not, or what we were going to do with it.
Did there come a time when you were ordered to open that envelope?
Yes, there was.
And when was that, Sergeant Riley?
January 6th, I believe, Friday of 2017.
Sergeant Riley, I'm showing you what has been admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 9, a composite exhibit. And I'm also showing you State's Exhibit 8. I'd like you to take a look at all of these items, please. Including examining the contents of that envelope.
Okay.
And the contents of the envelope.
I'm sorry.
You could take out the contents.
No,
Do you recognize all of those items?
I do.
Sergeant Riley?
I do.
What are they?
These are the checks that I found when told to open the envelope, one for $50,000 made out to Frank Bybee, and 3 separate checks for $5,000 apiece made out to each one of his sons. And this appears to be the business card that was affixed to the front of the envelope.
Okay, I was told by the clerk that the business card fell off. If you can, in a few minutes, I'm going to ask you to show the members of the jury where that business card was affixed. But now, Your Honor, I'm offering it to Evidence States Exhibit A.
8.
8.
Defense?
No objection.
All right, no objection having been heard. States 8 is admitted and may be published at your discretion.
I'm going to show you States Exhibit A and the business card. Can you show us where that business card was affixed? And there's a laser pointer up here. Use light.
It was fixed right in the middle, essentially. Right about the middle of the envelope.
And when you saw that envelope, was there also a return address?
There was. Marcia sold the return address was there.
And you had an opportunity to examine the contents of that
Yes.
envelope as well?
Yes, those appear to be.
Once you opened that envelope and examined the contents of the envelope, were there any further developments in the case?
I took the contents, made my Colonel Hoffman, aware of what we discovered and took him to his office, at which point it was determined that based on this new information we have in the administrative case, that this may have some potential to be a criminal allegation. So it was decided at the time that it would go to a criminal detective to follow up on the checks and do an investigation to see if there's a criminal act.
Who was the detective from the Criminal Investigation Bureau that was assigned to the case at that point?
Detective Gata.
Were there any further developments in the case after you opened that envelope, in addition to having Detective Gata come onto the case?
On January 11th of 2017, I received a phone message from Marcia Soul.
And based upon that phone message...
I'm sorry, I misspoke. On January 12th, I received it. It was left on January 11th.
All right, thank you. And based upon that phone message that you received on the 11th, what did you do?
At that time, it was determined, because she had been in a facility up until we just heard from her on the 12th, it was determined that I would get with Detective Gata, take her out to Marcia Soul's residence for the purpose of letting Marcia know this was now going to be a criminal investigation. Detective Gata would be doing that. I would be stepping aside, and the administrative investigation, was going to be on hold for a while, and that Detective Gata would be her contact person from here on out, basically to give her a courtesy that I would no longer be that person.
Tell the jury what you saw when you arrived at Ms. Soul's house.
When I arrived at Ms. Soul's house, and she leaves the door unlocked, sits in a recliner basically facing away from me as you come in the door. I knocked on the door, announced ourselves. She said to come in. As I come in, said good morning, some type of greeting. And as I walked past her, I looked down to say hello. And based on what I saw, my initial reaction was, what happened to you? To which she responded, Frank did this, he tried to kill me. So obviously that was unexpected. It took a minute to process it. When I looked at her, she appeared to have a cut lip with some dried blood, a little bit of dried blood on her nightgown, and there appeared to be some scattered pills under this recliner where she normally sits.
Was there bruising on her face?
There was some bruising and swelling.
Describe her demeanor.
It's kind of like a nervous excitement, a little bit of anger. She appeared to be shaken up, obviously.
Did she make any other statements besides Frankie did this, he tried to kill me?
Not to me. We were out there to do the criminal investigation with Detective Gaeta, or she was out there to do it. So at that point, I didn't interview her regarding the new allegations. So I stepped out, used the phone, let my supervisors know kind of that it's taken a more serious turn as far as the allegations.
Based upon your experience as a detective and internal affairs investigator over the course of 20 years at the sheriff's office, did she appear to be a victim of a violent crime?
She did. Certainly signs.
May I confer with co-counsel? When you went out to see Marcia Soul on the 27th and were accompanied by Lieutenant Borntrager, did you wear a suit?
I wore slacks, a shirt, and a tie. I did not have a jacket on.
Okay. And tell us how Lieutenant Borntrager was dressed.
He was dressed very similar. Shirt, tie, and slacks are daily dress.
Thank you. Nothing further from this witness.
Cross-examination, gentlemen?
Sergeant, your very first contact with Miss Soul was December 27th, 16?
That is correct.
Did you call her and let her know you were coming, or was that just you showed up?
I believe I called her and let her know.
Spoke to her on the phone?
I believe so.
Introduced yourself?
Normally I would do that, yes.
Did you tell her why you were coming?
Yes.
What'd you tell her?
If I in fact called her prior to going, which I'm certain I probably did, I would tell her.
Do you know whether you did or not?
It's been a while, so it's possible that I did.
All right.
I'm not going to say for certain either way.
Okay. So you go to meet her on the 27th with Borntrager, correct?
That's correct.
How long do you meet with her?
Probably only 20 to 30 minutes that day.
Why only 20 to 30 minutes?
Marcia told us that she wasn't really feeling well that day. So obviously I'm not going to make her any further uncomfortable. So we talked to her for a little bit until she said she'd just rather not talk anymore. And I asked her if we could come back at a later date, if possible, and get a statement from her, in which she said that would be fine.
And at this time, her complaint was Mr. Bybee's become too controlling with her everyday life, and she wants him to stop.
Yeah, yes.
She said she was being harassed, correct?
Yes, she felt like she was.
Did you and, is it Lieutenant Borntrager?
Sergeant Borntrager.
Sergeant Borntrager? Did you folks take her phone?
No.
Do you know whether her phone had ever been taken by any other detectives and analyzed?
Yes.
And you did not take it a second time?
I didn't take it the first time. I received it from Lieutenant Barshier, who had received it from her. I took it to the digital forensics folks, and they did the download, whatever the term they used.
Were you aware that there was many text messages between Ms. Soul and Mr. Bybee?
I was made aware of that eventually, yes.
Did you review them before you went and talked to her on the 27th?
Yes.
You reviewed the text messages?
Yes, I read the text message.
And when did you read those in relation to the 27th of December 2016?
I believe that was on the 22nd of December 16, because the holidays fell and with days off like the 23rd through the 26th. and that's why we ended up out there on the 27th.
Let's jump, if we can, to January 11th, 2017. Were you made aware that Ms. Soul called you and left you a voicemail at approximately 5:51 p.m. on January 11th, 2017?
I was not made aware of that on January 11th.
When were you made aware of that?
I discovered that message when coming in on the morning of January 12th.
So in the morning of January 12th, you listened to the message that she left you
Yes.
the day before at 5:51 p.m.
Yes.
Is that the accurate time and date?
Yes.
And in reference to that voicemail, you listened to it, correct?
Yes.
First time you'd ever heard Marcia Soul's voice?
Not since I met with her originally.
Okay. So you recognized it as Marcia Soul.
Yes.
She shared with you that she had some additional complaints. Is that correct?
She did.
And she mentioned to you that other officers had been to her house and that they were rude and
Objection.
Overruled.
they were rude. Did she actually call them a name?
I don't recall if she used a specific name. I know she was clearly unhappy when dealing with them.
Do you recall her saying, "These are smartasses that came in, I hate them"?
I do believe so, yes.
And these were two of the deputies that came in to take a complaint that she filed. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you know who those deputies were?
No.
Near the end of her voicemail to you, she says, "Boy, do I need for him to be done away with and put away." Is that right?
I would have to listen to it to say for sure.
Your Honor, if I may, I will mark this as Defendant's Exhibit A. We're in double letters now for identification only. Page 120, or excuse me, page 126, or 266 and 260.
What is it? What is it, please?
It is a
I don't have a copy of it, so just tell me what it is.
It is a transcription of the voice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, let me show you what I've marked for identification only as Defendant's Exhibit A. Specifically, I'm going to show you date stamp 268, page 3. And it's highlight. Read that to yourself. Tell me if that refreshes your memory of what she said.
Obviously, yes, since it's a transcript of the message.
All right. So she's telling you at this point in the transcript that she needs Frank Bybee to be done away with, put away. Right?
That's what it says.
Okay. So, what time do you...
Hey, folks, please be seated. Ms. Fredlich, you may call your next witness.
The state calls Sergeant Carrillo.
You may inquire.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Carrillo, will you please tell us your full name and spell your last name?
Gerardo Carrillo, Carrillo.
Sergeant Carrillo, what do you do for a living?
I'm a sergeant with the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office. I've been employed since 2003.
When did you become a sergeant?
2015.
What are your duties, sir?
Currently, I work the day shift patrol, Sector 1, B side. I have 9 guys on my squad.
What were your duties back in January of 2017, January 12th, 11th, and 12th to be precise?
I was night shift sergeant, Sector 1, A side, and I approximately had, I think it was 8 guys underneath.
Now, I want to draw your attention to January 11th of 2017. Did there come a time on your night shift that you were dispatched to an area in Sarasota in the location, general location of Spring Mill Circle?
Yes, ma'am.
And why were you dispatched there?
We were dispatched to assist other agency, reference a vehicle fire.
Sorry, what, Sergeant?
Reference a vehicle fire, sir?
A vehicle fire, thank you.
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
What time did you receive that dispatch, that call for help?
Dispatch was, the call was dispatched at 11:03.
When did you arrive?
I believe I arrived at 11:37, around there.
When you arrived, were other patrol cars on scene?
Yes, there was approximately 3 other vehicles, patrol vehicles, police vehicles on scene, along with the fire engine on scene.
Did you also arrive in a police car?
Yes, I did.
When you arrived on scene, was your car and the other cars that were on scene using their blue lights, the flashing lights?
Yes, the fire engine had the lights on, and the 3 other vehicles, along with my vehicle, 4 vehicles, had the lights on as well.
I'm showing you what has been marked for identification as State's Exhibit number 20.
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
look at that? Can you look at that for me,
Yes, ma'am.
please?
Yeah.
I was hearing your voices for a minute. Does that map accurately reflect the area that you were dispatched to along with your fellow deputies on January 11th of 2017?
Yes, ma'am.
Would it help you in your testimony?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I'm offering State's Exhibit 20 into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
No objection having been heard. States 20 is admitted, and you may publish at your discretion.
This is a laser pointer.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to use in your testimony. Sergeant Carrillo, do you know the name of this general area that we're looking at in this map? Are you familiar with that as part of your duties as a sergeant sheriff's office?
I'm familiar with the streets, but not the general area. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, if you could please point out the laser pointer Robinson Lane
This one right here.
and show us on the map where it was that you and your deputies and the fire truck had gathered in that response to a vehicle fire.
Yes, ma'am. The street here is Spring Mill Circle. So there's vehicles all down this road and down here. I believe I ended up parking right around here.
Okay, if you could please just point out where 3296 property is situated.
Right there, ma'am.
And for the town council.
what time did you arrive on scene?
Believe it was around 11:37 or so, 11:27 or so.
And can you tell us how long that whole encounter took place with the police cars, the fire department, and whatever else was going on at that vehicle fire?
For at least an hour.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you.
Cross-examination.
Okay, just me, go to normal.
Good.
No questions?
All right. Subject to recall?
No, Your Honor.
No.
All right. Sergeant, you may step down. You are not subject to recall, so may go on your way.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Oh, it's on me.
Next witness, state.
State Call Sergeant Adam Paskey. Do you recognize the man who just entered Walgreens?
Yes,
Who is that man?
that man is Frank Bybee.
Can you speak up nice and loudly?
That's Frankie Bybee. Yes.
Do you recognize the man that is standing at the ATM machine conducting a transaction?
Yes, I do. And that is Frank Bybee.
Sergeant Caskey, tell us where we are in this video surveillance clip.
This is the same location. It's just another angle of the ATM, which is up here. It's still.
This is a little different, so I want you to explain to us what is going on in this video surveillance clip that you obtained on December 16th, 2016.
This transaction took place on December 16th, 2016 at the 7-Eleven, which is located at 1721 North Honor Ave in Sarasota. As you saw, this is the front door, and then these are actually reversed as far as it goes by the picture. And what you'll see is, you saw a patrol car go by, and that's Deputy Bybee's patrol car. So you went by, and then you'll enter the business, and the easiest way to see is off this camera. The ATM's in the back, and it's off camera. So we don't actually have an angle on the camera itself.
Point out to us when Deputy Bybee enters the store.
He just now entered the store. He's in uniform.
Was Deputy Bybee driving a patrol car?
Yes, he was.
And is he in the uniform of the Sarasota Sheriff's Office?
Yes, he is.
You can show us his movements on the lower screen.
He's heading back toward the ATM right now, which is just out of camera.
sergeant, correct?
Yes.
Caster.
Yes, sir.
Beyond the ATM surveillance videos, did you search or were you tasked with searching any other video surveillances from any other businesses?
From any other businesses? Yes.
How many other businesses, if you recall, ballpark?
I truly could not give you an exact number. We did businesses that were on University, and we did businesses on Bee Ridge Road.
And did you recover any surveillance videos at those businesses that showed or reflected Mr. Bybee?
For the ATM transactions,
No.
or in the area, or what
In the
did we
area.
ask for? In the area? No, we didn't. Actually, yes, we did.
Okay. Do you know how many?
I do not.
Situation where it would have been just identifying him via driving or actually in person?
Via driving.
So you would have identified, I take it, his patrol car?
His no, his
Or his
personal vehicle. Or his personal vehicle.
Okay. You don't have a recollection of how many exactly?
I do not know how many businesses.
How about the dates? Do you have any?
I personally was doing it on January 20th.
Wow.
Was canvassing Bee Ridge Road.
Fair, thank you.
George?
There were other parts of the investigation that you were part of, in addition to looking at the fraudulent transactions that Frank Bybee made on ATM machines. And did you also gather other information per video surveillance?
Yes, I did.
And based on your experience as a law enforcement officer, do you gather as much information as possible when you are in the midst of an investigation?
Yes.
I mean, would you be remiss if you did not look at all of the potential evidence, Sergeant Caskey?
Absolutely.
And sometimes when you're looking at potential evidence, are there times when you reject certain things because you realize that they are not a part of the case?
Objection, leading.
Overruled, I'll allow it.
I'll ask it again.
No.
Do you?
Does he remember the question?
I can see the look on his face.
A little bit.
Why don't you try to rephrase?
Yes. Would you be remiss if you did not look at all the potential evidence?
Yes, we would.
Are there times when you have gathered what you believed was potential evidence and then realized that it has nothing to do with your case?
Yes, many times.
Thank you.
Thank you. Subject to recall? Date?
No.
All right, thank you. Sergeant, you may step down, sir, and you are released. Next witness, Dave. Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, we have finished with today's examinations. The state is exactly where they thought they would be at the end of today. Their cross-examinations were a little shorter than they anticipated, but they planned at 5 o'clock to have gone for all the witnesses we have seen today. I'm going to let you go a little early, get some personal business done. I know that I have to do a bit of a drive myself. I'm looking forward to getting out of here before rush hour, as you might be as well. We will reconvene tomorrow morning, back at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, but I can assure you that we are right where we are, right on the time frame in this case, as anticipated. So, all right, with that, ladies and gentlemen, just my admonishment, please don't read any news reports, please read any newspapers, and please don't do any independent research into facts and circumstances of this case. So we will meet again tomorrow. Thank you. Have a good day.
All rise, very slated.
All right, jury is gone. Please have a seat, everyone. For those of you who are remaining, there's nothing exciting that's going to go on right now. We are just going to talk about scheduling and anticipated witnesses for the next few days. So why don't we do that at this point? Mr. Lakin, you got some issues regarding doctors next week.
It's an Herculean task around now.
I'm shocked.
I'm shocked. So, anyway, I talked to some of these doctors last night and today. Okay, if someone going to just be available to me on Tuesday, one was not available on Wednesday. So I'd like to get a time frame to state commission so I can line up next week. Maybe get someone on 4 to 5 hours. And with all due respect, I said, I know they have a task of showing up. But it's a little extra hurdle, I think, the nurses and the people.
Been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. So state how are we proceeding as far as your anticipated witness list goes. I understand that we're right on time. How many more witnesses do you think you have at this point?
Well, I can tell you that we have witnesses through Tuesday.
Okay, through Tuesday.
Yes, and then after that, Wednesday, I don't know. Through Tuesday.
All right, is there any possibility that we could get the state's case done by Tuesday at noon?
No, not by noon, but certainly by Tuesday at 5. We will rest.
All right.
If I may, really just one doctor. She's not available on Wednesday, Thursday.
The state's fine with taking her out of order.
I appreciate that.
Right, if we could you want to take her on Tuesday, a little out of
Oh,
order?
without question, yeah.
Okay.
I appreciate the state's hospitality.
All right, and that's not going to be an issue then. All right.
Not at all.
Any other issues we need to talk about before we adjourn for the day?
No, thank you.
Ms. Fravely, Ms. Jackson?
I'm sorry.
Just any issues we need to deal with today? Or?
No, sir.
All right, very good. Then we will be adjourned. Once again, I will be available at 8:30 tomorrow morning if any issues come up. If not, we will be in session at 0900.
All rise. We're in recess. Tomorrow morning, 0900.